I'm Michael Rowe. I'm a geochemist in the School of Environment. So as a geochemist, I get to be involved in a lot of different projects, ranging from environmental science and engineering to archaeology and the earth sciences, where I'm primarily situated. As a geochemist, it means I'm using chemistry to analyze the different materials of the earth to understand how they form, why they form, and what they tell us about the bigger picture of earth processes. I'm part of a team working on funding and designing a sample return mission from Mars. To basically go to Mars, collect some specific material from what we have interpreted as hot spring deposits and bring them back to Earth in the search for life. So for my part of that project, I'm helping to characterize the different materials using examples here on Earth for what we think we're going to find on Mars. And we're trying to understand their physical properties, their chemical properties, and their mechanical properties so that we can better design a system to actually sample and collect that material on Mars. We wouldn't want to get all the way there and then not be able to actually get the material we want. Well, what we think we're going to find are hot spring deposits on Mars that have formed in very similar ways to the way they form on Earth, which means that there's a lot of life involved in their construction. Now, a lot of this is based on imagery and some analyses that were done over 15 years ago now. And so we're working with limited information, but with our best analogs for what we think we're going to find. And so our job is to sample a range of different materials that represent what we think we're looking at on Mars so that we are able to actually collect and understand how it forms. Given the opportunity, no, I would choose not to go to Mars. I'm very happy to send instruments there to collect data and even samples and bring them back. But I do enjoy living on the Earth and staying here. So what I've got here are 3 different samples of the sorts of material that we're testing and what we expect to find on the surface of Mars. And they're what referred to as digitate, the hot spring deposits, and they form these little finger-like structures, digits. And we can see that preserved. So this one, we can see it has this nice kind of solid top to it with these little protrusions here growing off of this upper surface. And we see these in varying shapes and forms. This one's an older sample from an old hot spring deposit in Utah in the United States. But we also have additional samples that we're working on. And this particular one is from a site called El Tatio in Chile. And what prior studies have suggested is that this is probably the best analog in terms of its shape and its form for what we expect to find from the images on Mars. So this was a very nice sample to get a hold of that a collaborator shared with us that allows us to work on what we think is the best comparison to Mars. And then we have one additional sample here, which is from Lake Rokawa in the Taupo volcanic zone, where this is what we feel is our best example in New Zealand of what these materials look like. In fact, we've got collaborators coming from Japan, Australia, and the US in November to actually go and visit some of these field sites so that they can get an understanding of what the geology looks like in the environment that it's forming, again, to help with how we might design sampling materials. So I've just come back from Melbourne, where we've been working at Swinburne University of Technology with colleagues there that have instrumentation for doing strength measurements on very fine scales. The materials that we're looking at sampling are really small. They're on the order of a couple centimeters to millimeters in size. And it becomes quite challenging to actually do the sorts of analyses we want. It requires a fairly specialized set of equipment. So we've been working there, characterizing how hard the materials are so that we can understand how they're actually going to break when we try to sample them on the surface of Mars. So while I was in Melbourne, I would have to say I actually really enjoyed meeting both the students and some of the different staff there. The project aside, it was a lot of fun to get to interact with people working on a range of different space-related topics and getting to really tell them about not just the work that we're doing, but actually the mission itself. And seeing the enthusiasm and the excitement both ways in terms of the work that we're doing. In terms of things I'd like everyone else to know is that this is what we could call a mission concept. We're building this from the ground up and trying to actually do it privately funded rather than through a large space agency like NASA or JAXA. And as part of that, there's a lot of grassroots work that goes into that. And we were actually at a point where we're happy with kind of this concept, and we're now starting to actively go out and seek partners and funding for this project. And as part of that, there's going to be a lot of ramping up and a lot of excitement around this work over the coming months. And I'm very excited to see how that's all going to play out, both from the science side, where there are a lot of neat questions that we're working on and things that still need to be answered, but also from the actual mission design side as we start bringing more and more partners into